Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to share a little quick video on a subject that was brought up by one of the members on the I think it was Mercedes maintenance group, not the rescue, but he brought up a good point, and it was in regards to owning and running a classic Mercedes, specifically the 300 SEL, the 109, but it can be applied to any of the Mercedes, I believe, except something like I don't know, a 600 or an older SL or a Goldwing, obviously, because of the expense of running something like that. My experience lies mainly with the 108s, as you know, but I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts I had about owning one, and sometimes I think that people can be put off by owning one by some of the stories that they hear. The expense of parts, the complication of owning one, some of the problems that can occur with them. First off, obviously, you know, the first thing is to get the best one you can. That's obviously something we all know about, rust and all those kind of things. Obviously, I'm dealing with some rust on the 300 here, but because of the type of car it is, I'm willing to go that extra mile. If it was a 108, I'd have probably just passed it on by and waited for something, you know, a bit more solid. That being said, I thought I just talked about my experience with the 108s. I've bought them at varying prices around the 5,000 mark. You know, it's all been a little under 5,000 to 7,000. I've owned 6 of them over the years, and all through those years, they had never really let me down. I've gone through basic maintenance items, you know, oil changes, transmission fluid changes, brakes, lines, hoses, all the standard stuff. But I have let certain things slip, you know, certain cosmetic things that I'm fine with, doesn't affect the running of the car. Cosmetics, this one's in really beautiful shape, you know, and I do take care, but I drive it around in my work clothes. You know, I've got dust and sawdust because I figure, you know, as long as I haven't got anything sharp in my pockets and I'm going to tear the seats or anything, it will clean, you know, I'll clean it. And so I'm not afraid to use them and drive them. They get dirty. The only thing I'm trying to avoid is getting that one in the rain, you know, for rust and all that kind of stuff. But, and obviously not all of us, there's a very few of us can afford to take a car in, you know, kind of a sad condition or kind of an older condition car and take it all the way through the restoration process. And that's where I think some of the numbers can frighten people. You could certainly take an older 108, 109, put it into a garage for restoration and be looking at astronomical bills, you know, obviously from rust repair, mechanical, drivetrain, brakes, everything, you know, and then obviously paint, upholstery, wood. I mean, you could tens and tens of thousands of dollars, even up to $100,000 quite easily. And I can see that working on my own cars, you know. I've got a lot of time on my hands. I can fiddle around and take my time, but also thoroughly enjoy doing it. But that being said, a lot of us don't need that. We want to drive the cars and use them as daily drivers. That's what I want to do. I don't want a car that I'm just going to sit in a garage. I'm not interested in that. I want to drive it and enjoy it. And you know, if a shopping trolley bumps into it, I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'll just fix it. You know, I just want to run them and appreciate the quality of the car. And also, I think it's good to run them anyway. You know, you don't want them sitting around all the time. You know, I've heard a few stories about parts costs for these cars. Now, again, I'm only talking about my own personal experience. You know, you may have different. But researching about the 109, obviously the differences are the motor, obviously, and the transmission, but the suspension and how it differs from the 108. Now, and there are aspects to the suspension that can get costly. For instance, the airbags. A huge, wild difference in prices I found up to $350 per airbag, right the way down to $180. That's straight from Germany, from MB Classics, who I feel that is a very good site and that has very competitive prices. Also, the leveling valves can be a pricey part of the car to get right, and they are, from my understanding, the one part that does give the most trouble if there is problems with it. Inherently, I think it's a reliable system. It's a very logical system, and as long as everything's right and maintained properly, should, from my understanding, give years of trouble-free service. You know, I've talked to Pierre several times, and you know, he's the one to keep things original, which I am as well, and it's a solid system. But as far as air valves, I've seen huge disparity in prices. I've seen a set of air valves for a 300 for $6,500 to $7,000. Now, again, from MB Classics, you can pick up the reconditioned air valves, completely reconditioned. They do need a core from you for around $450 each. And the Martin, I think, can't think of his name, Wernhausen, I think his name is, back east, he'll rebuild them for around that $450 a piece. Not cheap by anybody's standards really, but not 6,000, not 7,000, 8,000. I've even been told 16,000 for a set of fuel injectors for a 109. Now, I don't know anyone who would pay $16,000 for fuel injectors. I immediately, when I saw that price, I went on eBay just to see, and I found a 109 fuel injector. Admittedly, it was just one, but for $100 it had been rebuilt and serviced by the fuel injector company. I've heard prices of even $78,000 for a fuel injection pump. Again, you can have these rebuilt for around $2,000 to $3,000. Again, it's not cheap, but it's not $70,000. I think some of these prices get a little out of hand. And I think all part of it is that it's kind of fun actually looking for the parts, you know, kind of hunting them down. That's all part of the, it's really a hobby. It's not just having a car, it's a hobby. And again, back to the parts situation, you know, comparing the say the suspension parts on the 109 here, you know, they've got airbags, but along with that, it's a kind of double-edged sword. You know, you've got an airbag, you've got a spring. I mean, these 4 airbags and these 4 springs. I'm not even priced the springs of a 108. I don't know, what are they, 50, 75 bucks each. You know, a modern car, you try buying springs and shocks for a modern car, I mean, they're astronomical in price, you know. So it's the comparison, you know, headlight units, for instance. Someone I think said on the group site, a Mercedes, not a Mercedes, an Audi headlight unit, one of those big units, those modern units, $1,200. You know, so depending on the part, depending on the car, there's always going to be an expensive part here and there, unless you're talking about something really, really on a cheap end. Not to be put off by these. That's really what I'm getting to. I spoke to Pierre about the fuel injectors for the 109 and inquired about serviceability, rebuildability, and in his experience, which is obviously vast, he's found them to be relatively trouble-free after a bit of cleaning and stuff. They're pretty good to go, you know, because they're kind of so well built, and that's the bonus of these things. They're so well built, so overly engineered, that with a little cleaning and servicing and stuff, they can be up and running again. Also, as far as the complexity, the 109 compared to the 108 is obviously more complex car, but from my experience, again, I'm only speaking from my experience, they're extremely straightforward and logically put together. And if it's something I don't know, I just ask you guys, or or even call Pierre up. He's always willing to help. But it's logical. Everything's beautifully put together. You can take it apart, put it back without any worries. I work on my wife's car, a 2009 Volkswagen, and I'm mainly concerned about breaking things. You know, those little plastic clips and everything's so delicate, and you've got computers and servos and sensors everywhere. That's what I totally love working on these older cars, you know, because they're so serviceable and rebuildable, which I think is fantastic. And again, another reason not to scare someone off. Now, also, obviously, the more you work on them, the more you get familiar with your particular car. You learn all these little foibles and all that, and that's and then you're learning as you go. So I've learned an awful lot just by tinkering around and working on it myself. So I suppose what I'm getting to in this video is that for people that don't own a Mercedes or are thinking of buying a classic, not to scare them off, because I think that there's a lot of enthusiasm out there, a lot of people willing to help, and the parts are, you know, there are some parts that are no longer available, but with a little hunting I think you can get by. Obviously I'm one for trying to use as many original parts as possible, but to give you some kind of idea, you know, if you were in a point where you really couldn't afford the Mercedes part, then I don't think you should be slagged off for putting, say, something maybe a little cheaper so you can keep the car running. It's far better to do that, to let the car just disintegrate and go. So some of these cars are sitting around and people are put off by just these kind of horror stories, and what happens to them? They just rust into the ground anyway if they don't get picked up. This 300 and Mark's 300 in Chicago, if I hadn't heard that story, those cars would still be up there now and rusting into the ground, and more than likely would just be lost forever. So that's really the point of this video. I'm not ranting, I'm sure a lot of you agree with me, but so I think it should be encouraged, you know, to a can-do attitude to make sure you can to help people get them onto the road. You know, I thought this video would make a nice little break from the welding videos, a series of welding videos that I've done. In the next video, I shot a picture, I posted a picture about it, the repair panel to below the bottom of the front fender. Tricky little panel. I made it up complete, and this will be shown in my next video. This little panel here, I made that in the shop. Took overall probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours fussing around, and obviously I was filming as well, so that kind of slowed me down, but came out real well, and I've just got to weld it in now and then carry on. So that will be in the next welding video. And then also I want to do get back onto the wood side of things. I've got that dashboard bow, which is burl walnut, which I'm going to restore for this car, the 300. So anyway, so hope you enjoyed this little video, and I'll see you in the next one. Please hit subscribe and the like button if you like what you saw, and I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.